So I recently watched this video by Johnny Harris where he explains why everything makes you feel bored and goes into the neuroscience of being bored and the history of it. And one of the things he talks about is how the feeling of being bored is when your mind is in the position of not being stimulated by doing a task like, filing papers at work or riding a bike or doing whatever that takes focus and attention, or socializing with people. So when you're not doing either of those things, socializing or actively doing something, you will have to sit with your own thoughts, and that's how you become bored. And it really didn't resonate with me at all, because as an autistic person growing up, the biggest struggle is our inability to connect with the people around us through typical socialization. As social skills don't come naturally to us, they need to be taught, as if you're taught any practical skill like plumbing or business or what have you. I guess you can get skills from any of those traits throughout life, but typically to be good at them, you need to go to school for it or go out of your way to learn them in some deliberate way that takes time and is a learning process. It's not automatically given to us at birth, and that's how social skills are for autistic people. So because of us having to learn over time social skills, the time where we don't know them, which is usually all of childhood, teenagehood, and to varying degrees adulthood, and then obviously you could always surpass the average expectation of socialization and become even more likable to the average person, but it usually takes until adulthood for an autistic person to get onto the same socialization level from what you would expect from the average person for their age, which essentially means we have a good almost 2 decades of, in some way, shape, or form, to varying degrees depending on where on the spectrum you are, involuntary, forced social isolation due to just not being able to properly communicate or understand other people, making this criteria for boredom, which in John's video was described as like a very painful, I don't want to be bored for too long or else I sit with my thoughts and then get existential crises because I'm just thinking by myself type situation, to be an involuntary inevitability for all autistic children to various extents. So in my case, I grew accustomed to it and I actually like being alone or bored or having nothing to do. It's a very peaceful, predictable, safe state of mind and mental environment to be in. But that wasn't always the case for me, and is probably part of what guided me to develop a tendency to have hyperfixations, because one of the things to alleviate boredom is to be active in an activity other than socializing. And if we can't socialize, then we're gonna hyper-focus into an activity to alleviate that boredom. It's probably why as I got older I had less and less hyperfixations, because I got more comfortable with being bored and just better at socializing, I guess. That probably alleviated a lot of it too. But another thing that this persistent feeling of boredom due to being unable to socially connect, or more accurately just not knowing how, is the fact that we do have these moments of self-reflection at younger ages than neurotypical people and more frequently than neurotypical people, making us very in tune with ourselves, which might also be why autistic people are more likely to come out as LGBTQ, as we've had the time to involuntarily self-reflect more than the average person, and the more self-reflection you do, obviously that leads to you discovering yourself, and that is a core part of that. So the higher chance of an autistic person coming out as queer might be a result of them finding out themselves earlier, or even at all in that aspect, because we do involuntarily have all of this time to self-reflect from the social isolation of not being able to socialize. I think this forced social isolation that all autistic people have to go through until they learn how to socialize contributes a lot to typical autistic behaviors and thinking patterns that I think neurotypical people would also develop if they were in a position where they couldn't socialize with anyone, like, I don't know, being born in the jungle alone like Tarzan. Tarzan might be more autistic than we think. It really makes you think what future autistic people could be like if everyone had the tools, resources, and knowledge to teach autistic people social skills from a very young age in a very effective way that we just haven't figured out yet because we're still learning the human brain, you know? We could actually actually be more alike to neurotypicals than we think, but are conditioned to end up a certain way through the innate misunderstanding and incompatibility of an autistic person to a neurotypical person, or just knowledge of how autistic people think in general, cause us to develop in ways that might not even exist if everyone who had an autistic child was an autistic expert, and it was years in the future and we knew the best way to teach social skills to young autistic kids. We might actually end up being more alike than how most autistic people are right now, because information on autistic people and how to parent them and all of that is just so underdeveloped. We're getting there, I hope, but the fact that most people learn what autism is through the Netflix show Love on the Spectrum is indicative of how foreign autism is to the average person. So hopefully this video, you learned something, you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to subscribe and leave a like. It helps me out a lot, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day.